Alright, so this is the flag taping tutorial for anyone that needs help or re-clarification. The items you will need is a 12-inch ruler, tape obviously, whatever color. For this one we're going to do black for the spirit flag. A 3-inch bolt and a 2-inch bolt, 2 crutch tips, a 6-foot aluminum pole, and then a silk, and then your panther silk obviously. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do before you even put the items together is you're going to want to tape the crutch tips and the bolts completely. So to tape the bolts, all you're going to do is you're going to start at the top. You're going to put the tape right on the edge of the bolt and let it come all the way around. Alright, now once it's all the way around, you're just going to cover it up completely by going all the way down the bolt. It doesn't have to be pretty, no one's going to see it. And then once you get to the bottom of the bolt, come back up. And then you'll come around the top of the bolt one more time. So after you do that, you can either rip the tape or use the scissors to cut it. So after you get it cut from the roll, you're going to want to press the bottom and the top down. Alright, this will help prevent the clanking sound whenever we're spinning or if you draw. So this is what your bolt should look like. So you're going to want to do that for the 3-inch bolt and the 2-inch bolt. So they should be completely covered. You might have a little bit of silver on top, but that's okay. Alright, the next part, for your crutch tips, you're going to want to cut three pieces of tape. So you want to rip it out at 3 inches, or you can cut it at 3 inches. So one, and then the more you do it, the easier it is. It doesn't have to be exact, just enough to cover the top of the crutch tip. 2 and 3. Alright, so once you have your 3 pieces, you have your crutch tip. The first piece, you're going to want to have it right in the middle of the crutch tip on the side, and then go ahead and pull it so that it's tight, and you're going to come up and over the top of the crutch tip. So it doesn't have to go all the way down, it should just be enough to cover the top and the ridge. Then you're going to take the next one, right next to where you put the first piece of tape. You're going to pull it tight and you'll have it come up and over so that it ends up on the opposite side of that same piece. So you should have an X, kind of. Then after that, you'll find the open space on the last part. You'll pull it nice and tight up and over, right? So you will have a little bit of space. That'll be fine because we're going to cover it up anyway. So those 3 pieces of tape should cover the top, all right? And then you'll want to do the same thing for the second piece. So once you have your 2 crutch tips done, you'll just set them to the side. They're not fully taped, but we'll do that once we get it on the flag. So the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to grab your pole. It does not matter what end you use. We are going to take the smaller bolt and do the bottom crutch tip first. So when you take the smaller bolt, go ahead and put it inside. And then you're going to get 2 pieces of tape that are like 3 inches, about the same as what we use for the top of the crutch tip. So when you do that, when you get your tape, you're going to want to put it, I would say about an inch down from the end of it, pull it up and over so that it goes all the way to the other side. So this way that the bolt can stay in place as we're spinning. Alright, after you do that first one, you'll take another piece of tape that's about 3 inches long, cut or rip it off, and then you're going to make the letter T on top of it. Alright, so it doesn't have to be perfect, no one's going to see it, but it should hold the bolt in place. If you want to test it, go ahead and hit the hit the pole, and if you hear something, you may need to wrap tape around the bolt more, or maybe put another piece of tape here to really reinforce it. So after we put those 2 pieces of tape on it, just go from the roll, you're going to wrap it around. You want half the tape to be on the pole and then half of it to be just above. I would say wrap it around 2 or 3 times, doesn't matter. You rip it off or cut it off, and from there you press it down. Right, and that'll reinforce the bolt so that hopefully you don't hear anything. Right, after you get your 2-inch bolt in, just double check, make sure you have the 3-inch bolt left. If you put it upside down, your flag's not going to spin right and you'll have to retape the entire thing. You're going to take one of your crutch tips, put it on top, and then hit it a couple times to make sure that it's really on there. All right, now, just like we did with the end of the pole, we had half of the tape on and half the tape off. You're going to want to do the same thing. This is going to help cover the spots that we missed. Alright, so as you have your tape, you'll put it on half on, half off, so I have a little bit extra on top. Go ahead and go around it once. Alright, after you go around maybe once or twice, start rotating the pole and work your way down the crutch tip. And then you're going to want to work your way onto the pole. And then once you have the diameter of the tape around the pole, that should be more than enough. All right, so don't go beyond the width of the actual tape. This is enough to keep the crutch tip on without flying off. And then from there, just push down what's left over on top. And then you should have every single part of the crutch tip covered. All right, so now we are done with the bottom of our flagpole. Now, after you get the bottom crutch tip on, this is just to make sure we know what side we're working with, you're going to want to put your cheaters. A lot of your poles, if not all of them, should already have the cheaters, but say we get new poles for winter or for next fall, I want you guys to know how to measure the cheaters. They have to be perfect, right? Otherwise, toss is going to be different, and when you grab different parts of the pole, you're utilizing the flag in a different way because you're grabbing different distances from the top bolt or from the bottom bolt, right? So this is where you want to use your ruler. Do not guesstimate. If you don't have a ruler, find a measuring tape, or you need to wait to tape your flag until you have something that tells you how far you're measuring. So go ahead and start from the bottom crutch tip. Now the ridge on the crutch tip, you're going to want to put the ruler just past that, right? Because this is all crutch tip, it's not the pole. The pole only goes up to where the ridge starts. So for a visual, you'll want to put it below the thick part of the crutch tip. So my ruler's right on my pole, right under that ridge. I'll pull it here. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then from here, you can either rip it or cut it with a pair of scissors. So when you do this, you want the tape to end up right in the middle of where the 12 is. All right, so don't do it all the way over or all the way over here. Put it so that the middle of the tape is at the 12. All right. Now, once that happens, you can pick up the pole and you can slowly roll the pole around so you can keep the tape nice and tight so that there's no ridges, and then you want to make sure that both sides of the tape are matching together as we go around the pole. All right? And then it should be thick enough to where you can feel it. So after you do your bottom tape, you're going to measure right in between the tape, in the middle of it, not at the edge or this edge, right in the middle, and then you're going to go up to the top tape. So once you find where that point is, you're going to measure a foot of tape again, just like the first one. And if you don't like how thick it is at the bottom, go ahead and pull open a little bit more tape. And then once you have your tape, go ahead and cut it or rip it off. And you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to go to where the tape is in the middle of the 12, and then press it down so there's no bubbles. And then from here, lift up the pole, and then start rotating the pole so that you can get the tape all the way around. Now as you do it slow enough so that you can only have the thickness of the tape around the pole. Once you start going too fast and pulling it around, the tape is going to take up too much space. And you want to make sure that the width of the tape that you're using for your bottom tape and top tape is as small as possible so you can be as accurate as possible. Alright, so we got our bottom tape and our top tape. From here, this is just where the tab is, and we don't want to do that yet. So in order to be as accurate as possible, we're going to flip over the pole. And we're going to start from the top, but you don't want to put your top bolt in yet because we have to do that with the silk. So from here, now that we have the actual pole, you can just use the edge of the ruler and go to where the top tape is within the silk. So again, go ahead and untape about 12 to 15 inches of tape so we can use it for our top tape. And then rip it off or cut it with scissors. Repeat the process. You're going to place it right in the middle so that the 12 is right in the middle of the tape. Press it down, lift it up, and roll it around. Again, try to be as accurate as possible. Keep the edges together. All right. Then from here, take the ruler. Same exact process. You're going to put the ruler right in the middle of the tape. So you find where your bottom tape within the silk is. If I can get this tape. All right. So again, unwrap about 12 to 15 inches of tape. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then cut it and or rip it off. And then same thing, put the tape right in the middle of where the 12 is. Lift up the pole and start wrapping it around. All right, good. Why did I say good? And then from here, you're gonna measure, well, for the tab, it'll be from here, but if you wanna double check your measurements, you can measure from the middle of this one, keep your finger here, and then double check to see if the middle of this one matches the middle of this one. And for me, luckily it does. So when you're done, you should have 4 cheater tapes, 2 towards the top, and then 2 towards the bottom, right? So again, with the cheater tapes, this is the bottom tape, top tape of the pole, and then within the silk, bottom tape, top tape, and then top crutch tip. So the next thing that we're gonna have to do is take your silk. If you have your panther silk, the panther faces right face up, so don't get it upside down. Wherever the bottom of your flag is, go ahead and slide it over the pole, obviously over the side that doesn't have the crutch tip. You can't do that. Or you can try, but you might rip your silk, and then I'll be mad. So you'll slide it all the way over, nice and slow. All right, and when you get the pole on, or I'm sorry, when you get the silk on, don't tape the tab yet. You're gonna wanna have the top part of the silk up here and have it about 1.5 inches off of the top, all right? And then go ahead and lightly sit that down so it doesn't move. After that, you're gonna wanna rip about 6 inches of tape, 4 to 6 inches, doesn't matter. All right, cut it or rip it. Now from here, come back to your pole. You're gonna wanna pinch the pole with your index finger and your thumb so that it's tight, all right? And then go ahead and keep it 1/2 inch. Now, once that happens, you'll take your tape. You're gonna place it on the silk so that it goes to the top of the aluminum pole. So now half of it should be pole, half of it should be silk. Now, once I push enough on, I'm gonna pull the seam straight down, and then I'm gonna wrap it around all the way, okay? This is to keep the silk in place so that when we're spinning, when you see a crutch tip on and the flag goes down, it's because they probably didn't tape the silk part down. So this is just your initial tape. So after you have it in place, go ahead and take another like 4 to 6 inches off, cut it or rip it off, and pull the seam straight down again, and then you'll want to go a little bit lower just to reinforce it. All right, now from here, we're going to come back to our bolt, our 3-inch bolt that's going to go on top. So you'll put that in top, and we're going to reinforce it just like we did with the bottom bolt. But with this one, you don't want to make the pieces as long because you don't want it to come from under the crutch tip. So I would say make these about 2 or 3 inches long. So I got my first piece, push it on the side of the pole, lift it up nice and tight. And then take my second piece, make the letter T, lowercase t, pull it up and tight as well. So same process as the bottom pole, bottom crutch tip. You're gonna take your other crutch tip, make sure that the flag is pulled straight down so it doesn't get pulled to one side or the other. This one might be a little bit more difficult to put on, but just push it, use both hands, and then reinforce it. And then take your tape again. And then same thing as before, you want to put half the tape on and half the tape off to cover the spots on top of the ridge. And you can use your thumb inside to roll it around. Once you go all the way around, maybe once or twice, go ahead and start working your way down the crutch tip, making sure that it's overlapping as you go down so you don't miss any parts. And then same thing, you want the width of the tape down into the pole. So you're going to go down onto the silk. So it's very important that you pull your silk straight down, otherwise it's going to get pulled to one side or the other, and you're more prone to getting sales that way. So once you wrap it around 2 or 3 times around the silk, cut it or rip it off. And then I always just like to pull it up a little bit just so it maximizes the color. You don't want it to be completely down, right? So you will have the tape slightly down on the silk, but when you're outside, it's kind of nice because the tape likes to melt, and this is extra reinforcement. So once you get that part done, go ahead and push whatever is left of the tape on top to reinforce it. And then now, because I have a white silk and black tape, which I did that on purpose so you can see the details, you should have tapes under your silk, all right? And they should be equally spaced because we measured it with a ruler. And then the thickness should be okay, we should be able to feel it, but it shouldn't be so much that it's protruding out of the silk. Now from here, the last thing we're going to do is tape the tab. So the first thing you want to do is look for this seam, all right? Look for this stitching. So you want to make sure that it's not like this, where it's wrapped around. You want to make sure that you unravel the pole, and you want to find it and make sure that it's all on one side, all right? So from here, I pull it a little bit tighter, and then just like I pinched up here, I'm going to pinch at the tab so that the seam doesn't move, all right? And then once I pinch it, I'm going to lay it down in spot so that I can see the seam all the way across looking up at me. It's not twisting under the pole or anything like that. So from here, you're going to use, doesn't even matter, pick like 4 to 6 inches of tape, cut it or rip it off. Now I'm going to take my silk, lift it up, and I'm going to pinch it again so that it doesn't move. All right? And you want to make sure the seam is in the same spot. So now the little bit of silk that I have here, I want to cover it half with tape, half without. And then I'm going to push it down around. Now once I have enough tape on there to keep the silk in place, you're going to pull up just a little bit, but just make sure that the seam stays in line with the seam. All right, just enough to get the seam out of the way. I'm going to wrap it around in spot. And making sure that the tape wraps around itself. Don't make it too wide. All right, so from here you're going to take about, I would say, 6 to 8 more inches of tape. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then from here I'm going to place it a little bit higher, all right, to reinforce it a little bit more. Again, pull the seam up so you have space, and then pull it around. And you want to go up a little bit, enough to cover up the space that was under here. All right, and then same thing, I want to pull down a little bit just so that I can maximize the color. All right, so this is what your tab should look like. This is what your tab should look like. If you did it correctly, you should be able to hold your flag up and your seam should be on one side. If it's twisted, you need to fix it, right? Whether it be, I would suggest fixing it from the tab, because if you do it from here, you have to retape your crutch, tape your bolt, and everything. All right, and then obviously you're gonna wanna write your name at the bottom of it. If we have black tape, you wanna use a silver marker or a white marker. Black isn't really gonna show up. Or if you only have a black marker, get a white piece of tape and then write your name on it. All right, if you have any questions, shoot me an email or comment on Facebook.